Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome down to the Whiskey Nook. It's another Saturday and another review closer to Canada Day, and as I've been saying, I want to talk some Canadian whiskey. Now, I've actually talked about both these bottles, one a full review and the other kind of a hello at the World Whiskey, but they deserve some more time, thinking of heading into some celebration where we might look for some Canadian whiskey. So today, I'm going to focus our conversation around Gooderham Worts 49 Wellington. It's part of the 2019 Northern Border special release. I never remember how they call that, but that special fall release from J.P. Weiser that puts out, the Lot 40, the Gooderham Worts, the special Weisers, and Pike Creek. Good. So when we come back, we'll talk about this Gooderham Worts 49 Wellington, 19-year-old red winter wheat. There's lots of stuff to talk about, but this is some interesting Canadian whiskey. Stay with me.
3, 4.
I want to talk a bit about Canadian whiskey again. And so this is Gooderham Worts. Now, Gooderham Worts whiskey is typically a 4-grain whiskey. Now, they have released some that's only a 3-grain, but it is typically 4 grain. So we've got, wheat and corn and rye and barley. This has some interesting things to it. First of all, I believe it's named 49 Wellington after the address where the Gooderham family built in Toronto a Flatiron building or something. I can't remember. I've seen pictures, but it's a building, I believe, at 49 Wellington. And so it's a nod to that. And as Dr. Don Livermore often does, is the 49% is a nod to the address. He often has little Easter eggs around the ABV, which I think is pretty cool. A bit more about the whiskey. There's at least 2 unique things with this release. Well, 3. It's 19 years old. That's pretty cool. It's an older Canadian whiskey. So that, all the whiskey in here is 19 years. Then they've used a red winter wheat, which is, different than the regular wheat that they use. So that's cool. And then I believe that they used red oak. I don't know if they were toasted or charred, but red oak staves at some point in the maturation were put in for some extra, like not for, I don't believe a long time, it's more like a finishing, but with some stave inserts, and it was red oak staves. So we'll see what that extra kind of oak staves gives us, if there's anything red winter wheat that we can pick out of here, and we'll just taste it, see what we get. But there's some pretty kind of cool things going on in this bottle. Stock whiskey. Well, the nose is, good Canadian whiskey in that it feels a little corn forward. It's a little buttery. And there's a little bit of spice on it, just a little bit of something kind of perking up the nose. Now, I don't know at this point when the nose where that spice is coming from. Good vanillas, quite a bit of vanillas. Yeah, buttery corn, vanilla, little spice, that kind of is playing around on the nose. Let's see what the palate is. Cheers. There's a lot going on in here. It is, at first, I am getting that kind of caramel, creamy. Oh, okay, this might be kind of a smooth. And then it plays on. It's playful with both oak and spice. It's got kind of a wood tannins. And now what I don't know, because there is rye in here, at first, I really don't know where that spice is coming from. But it's not, for me, in my palate, it's not like a cinnamon red type spice. It's more a little bit peppery, a little bit like a feeling spice. I'm going to try it again. Okay, that time I got a little more high sugars, so more like that maple syrup sweetness. The spice is deepening and moving across my tongue into more peppering. It's quite spicy now. It's not, well, I was gonna say it's not a spice bomb, but it's fairly spicy. And that early finish is a little more char, like oak. This is actually ends up being fairly spicy, which if you're looking for in a whiskey is great. It gives that, you know, second layer, third layer, whatever it is you're going for, right? It perks you up. It keeps the mouth alive. It could be, if you're not looking for that spicing, it could feel a bit burny, a little bit burning. Now it doesn't feel like that alcohol burn, like oh, but it would. It's not as relaxing as some whiskeys that you sip and kind of they coat and move off. This doesn't. It stays around. And even as I'm talking the long finish, there's still parts of my tongue that are perking up as a result of sharing a dram of this. So I like it a lot. Like a lot. This is good whiskey. It's got layers of flavor. There is some sweetness. It tends to be a little, you know, that sweet Canadian, but that backing of extra oak and that spicing is something that I like, that actually tries to clean up after too much sugar, right? That's why I like coffee and cheesecake. The cheesecake is amazing, but it would be too much if I didn't have, you know, unsweetened coffee. In this case, I like the complexity. I like the spices. It's easily a 4-star whiskey for me. It's probably more, 4.25, easy. Easy, really. Love it. Love this stuff. I wanted to compare this to another Canadian whiskey, and I still have a bit of this 40 Creek Victory. Now, 40 Creek releases an annual special release, and this is at least 2 years back, so bottle's been open for a while. But I know that certainly here in Edmonton, Olympia Liquor still has on the shelf for actually a great price. So it's worth comparing. Could be a nice special bottle if you're looking for something, if you're going camping or doing some unique Canadian activities over Canada Day. This Victory is, how do I walk through their preparation? I believe they age a lot of their grains separately. And so they take aged rye, corn, and barley and mix them at about 4 years, I think. And then I've heard that they also do a high vanilla toast staves. They take about half of that blend, age it for about 5 months or so with those staves. So actually kind of a similar treatment in a way, but this is, you know, red oak, very spicy, cedary type oak. Whereas this, I don't know the style of oak, but they say high vanilla toast. And then they add a 10-year-old corn whiskey that's been aged in New American oak, and then they add a little bit of starboard wine, which is kind of like a port. So they've added a bit of wine, probably using that 1 part for every 10 parts that you can in Canadian whiskey, which is a really odd thing, but we'll talk about that later. And then they release it at 43%. So an interesting mix, interesting story. Let's see what the whiskey says. In comparison, it's much sweeter on the nose. This is strong vanilla. Actually, in direct coming back, I think I caught a little bit of that starboard wine. It suddenly had a little bit of fruit character that I have not in my notes noted. But it's gently there on the nose. Let's try the whiskey. Cheers. This is very close to 40 Creek with more wood and a little bit more spice. But when I say that, you might be thinking, in comparison, there's almost no spice compared to this 19-year-old over here. This is stronger brown sugars, a little bit of cinnamon, quite a bit of high sweetness somewhere in there, candy sweetness, corn sweetness, maple syrup sweetness, something going on. But a little bit of oak, a little more oak than regular 40 Creek. The coat's nice. It's a much smoother, much gentler whiskey than the Wellington. I suppose that light fruiting is kicking around in the flavor, but it doesn't have a distinct, cherry, or it almost has a really light hint of mature banana, but that, I don't know. Just sort of a general ripe fruit note. There is a little bit. Second sip, more spicing came on it, so I can't say it's devoid of spice. There is something kicking on there. And if I were to compare it, but only in memory, to a copper pot, for example, there is significant more wood on here and more spice, well, and a little bit of fruit. It's good. And the fact that you can still get it in Edmonton for a really great price at Olympia Liquor, it would be a nice celebratory whiskey that I could easily recommend. So, we've taken a look at a couple of pretty good Canadian whiskeys. This one here, let's say 4.25. This one, let's leave it at 4 stars maybe, but both of these are strong representations of what I think good Canadian whiskey. By that I mean there's usually a mix of grains. This one's 3, this one's 4. It's a little bit higher corn, tends to be a little bit sweeter, but then we've got some nice notes of oak, and there's spice, either coming from rye or for some oak treatment. So pretty cool stuff. Thanks for joining me here, and I hope I can still talk at least one more expression before Canada Day. You guys have a great weekend.